I'm attorney Phil Jusino, and this is Finding Common Ground here on Altice Channel 115. You can see this show every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Altice Channel 115. If you don't have Altice, you can go to my YouTube page, Phil Jusino. You can see old shows. You can see the current show, which premieres at 10 a.m. on Saturday. You can also hear me on the radio. I have a show called Phil Jusino, Drive at 5 on 103.9 FM, LI News Radio. That's every Monday at 5 p.m., Drive at 5. I come on about 5:06, so if you tune it on at 5 o'clock, be patient. When the news and weather finishes, you'll hear the show. Got a great guest, very interesting, fascinating guest. Her name is Doreen Quinn Giuliano. She's also known as Mother Justice and also Undercover Mother. You're going to find out in a little bit why. Doreen, welcome aboard.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Doreen's son, John Giuca, was convicted in 2005 of a murder that took place in 2003 of a Mark Fisher, who at the time was 19, and he was a college student. John was 20 at the time. The date of the arrest was 12/21/2004. Doreen, the first thing I want to ask you is this. The arrest was December 21, 2004. At that time, the day he was arrested, you must have known he was a suspect prior to that date.
Not really, Phil.
You didn't?
No.
You were aware that someone had been murdered, someone that was
Previously,
right?
was in my house.
Was in your house.
Impromptu party.
So you must have been questioned by the police.
Yes.
Right. So you knew, maybe you didn't know he was a suspect, but you knew of the name. You knew that someone had been killed.
Right.
At that time, did you have an idea who might have done it prior to John's arrest?
No, not at that time, no. But I also didn't know that John was a suspect. He was being harassed, but being from Brooklyn, you know, all the youngsters are always harassed by the police.
By the police?
Yeah, John would go to the store and get pulled over and thrown on top of a car.
Now, was this even before?
No, this was after. This was after. So I figured they thought they were doing their job, you know. And John was in college at the time, John Jay College of Criminal Justice.
Where my daughter graduated from.
Oh, okay.
Years later.
Okay.
Now,
and he was an honest student, no record.
No, never been in trouble before.
So I figured what they were trying to do was dirty him up, trying to find drugs on him or something. And they never did.
Got it.
They really harassed him. But I never really put it together that they looked at him as a suspect. Just that they were harassing the kids that were at my house.
Kind of shaking the tree a little bit to maybe somebody would come up with some information or slip and say something.
Well, they did go to several of the kids' dorms who was at my house and searched their dorm rooms. So, like you said, shaking it up a bit.
Right. So, December 21st, 2004 rolls around.
Right.
That's the day of the arrest. How did they arrest him?
Well, actually, he was shopping for Christmas and Hanukkah gifts, and he was heading home. And that was a very emotional time for me because I kept calling him up to get home and help me decorate this Christmas tree. Yeah, earlier. Him and Matthew, his brother, just wouldn't decorate the tree. And I refused to do it by myself. So he said he's on his way home. He finally, he went to Macy's and, you know, he went shopping, got the gifts, was like 5 feet from my front door when all the cops pulled up.
You were home?
I was home.
You saw this?
I didn't see it. I was in my bedroom. I ran to the window, okay? The bell rang. And the detective had all his gifts and just handed them to my husband. And I could see the lights from the cop cars outside. And then I went to the window, and then I seen John spread on one of the cars, and they were searching him. So I was going to go running out, you know, leave my son alone, and you know, I said
that was the day.
That was the day. It was very emotional for me because I didn't want them to hurt him. And if I go out there screaming and yelling, that I felt like it was going to get ugly.
So they place him under arrest. The nightmare for you and for him and for your family begins.
Right. We called a lawyer.
Right. You hired an attorney for him.
Right.
Now, the trial didn't take place until 2005.
Yes.
So was he in jail the whole time, or did he make bail
There was no bail, and he was in Rikers Island.
for the whole period of time up until the trial?
Correct.
You were able to visit him?
Yes.
Did he keep his spirits up?
Yeah. We were optimistic. We were, we kept thinking that they were going to clear this up. Everything was going to be okay.
You knew he was innocent.
Yeah, exactly.
And he knew. Did you ever lose? Well, first let me ask you it this way: did you ever doubt his innocence?
Oh no, of course not.
Did you ever doubt that he would be acquitted after? Because you knew that they weren't going to just roll over. They weren't going to just drop the. You were hoping, but once you knew that they were in trial mode,
I was sure he was going to get acquitted.
was there an offer?
There was an offer, 20 years.
Okay, not much of an offer.
Yeah.
He got 25.
It's
so-
like 20 years for something I didn't do. We're going to trial.
Right, and he had there was a co-defendant who also was
There was a
convicted.
yeah,
What was
correct.
his name? Or what is his name?
Antonio Russo.
He's also still in jail, or
He is.
Okay. Now, right, so they have the trial. Are you there every day?
Every day for 2 weeks.
The trial was 2 weeks long.
Correct.
How long did they deliberate for?
Oh, I'm going to
jury
say
you're talking
2
about.
hours.
That was
They
it?
came back right away.
Very quickly.
But you have to understand, like, this was a trial that had zero evidence. There was no DNA.
Was there any kind of confession? Like I know some
There
people
was
false
no
confession.
confession, no confession, no eyewitnesses, no DNA. It was a he said, she said trial. It was testimony only.
Okay, got it. And so after the trial is over, it was only a 2-hour deliberation, you
Right.
said, so it was very, very quick.
Right.
So you're sitting there. Put us in the courtroom now on the day of the conviction. Are you there with your husband?
I am. I'm with my family and friends, and it was a packed house. I mean,
Now,
John had a lot of supporters.
Right. Now, Mark Fisher's family, were they also there?
Yes.
Right. And is it fair to say that they probably believed that John had killed their son?
They were deceived. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. They were
And-
deceived. They were lied to by the prosecutors.
Jury comes in, and I've been in this seat many times next to my client, not as a defendant, but as a client, and it's just something in your gut because you feel powerless. You know, when the trial's going on, you feel like you have a control over it.
Right.
Then you're sitting there, and your client's fate is in the hands of the jury. So they come out, and how many counts was he looking at? How many counts was he charged with? Do you recall?
Well, felony murder, robbery.
So that was the first thing.
So several counts.
Several? Right.
Yeah.
The reason why I say it is when I spoke to Marty Tankliff the other day, he was on my show, he said he was charged with 2 things which you can't be charged with anymore. There's an inconsistency. The law changed. But he said the first words he heard was not guilty of the first count.
Oh.
Now, in your case, was the first count guilty? Was he found guilty in all counts?
Correct. Yes.
So you hear guilty, guilty, guilty.
Right,
They poll-
robbery.
I'm sure they poll
Yeah.
the jury, and they all say guilty, guilty, guilty. Did that take place, if you recall?
After that, I don't
could
remember
just
nothing.
imagine. Right.
Yeah, I
So-
think I actually fainted.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, it was not good.
So
I was shocked.
He's found. So I'm sure the Fisher family, they're elated. They believe that the person who killed it, and you could understand if that's how they felt,
Yeah.
they would be happy, just like if, God forbid, one of
Right.
your family members was murdered. So they're happy. You faint. Your side is crushed. You're sitting on one side. They're sitting on the other side. They kept you guys apart, I would assume, right? The court officers. And after that, do you remember the next time that you personally spoke with John after the conviction?
Yeah, we went to Rikers Island. Me and my husband and I believe my son Matthew. We went to Rikers Island.
How old was Matthew at the time?
Oh, Matthew was 17.
Okay, so the younger brother. And how did John react? Obviously, now he's looking at, he didn't get sentenced that day, but he's looking at, he knows. If you turn down 20 years to life as a plea, you know that they're going to throw the book at you. So what is his mindset when you walked into that, or they brought him into you?
He was distraught. He was beyond distraught. He couldn't believe that a jury could possibly come back with zero evidence, come back with a guilty verdict.
And the co-defendant was found guilty as well.
Yeah, but it took maybe 6 days for him.
For their deliberation.
Correct.
The co-defendant.
And meanwhile, he fled to California. He cut his hair. He confessed to several people that he committed this crime. And it took them six days.
Okay, I see. Now, you said when he fled to California, that was before the arrest, because once they arrested him, he wasn't released.
Immediately after the murder.
Right.
He fled.
He fled, which obviously is consciousness of guilt. John didn't do that, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
Let me ask you a question. I'm calling an audible. Do you believe that the co-defendant had anything to do with this murder?
I do believe that, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. I mean, he confessed several times.
So he's found guilty.
Yeah.
He's in, and unfortunately, so is your son. All right. So then you have to start thinking of an appeal, because obviously there's a conviction. The next step is an appeal. You can make a motion, of course, but you're thinking appeal. So how quickly after the conviction did you hire, or was an attorney for the appeal appointed? How did that happen?
Probably a week. I mean, we're going back now 16 years, so I have to dig into my memory, about exactly, with timelines I could get screwed up on. But I'm going to say a week.
Now, I read also that in 2018, the appellate division, which is not the highest court of appeals, is the second department, which covers Brooklyn, Long Island, Suffolk County, reversed it.
Yes.
Right. So when you hear that, you got to be elated. You figure the nightmare is over, right? You had to think that, even though you knew it could still go further, but you thought he was getting out.
Well, I know the procedure now.
But back then.
Well, 2018, they reversed the conviction. I knew we had some other hurdles. First of all,
he's already been in jail 13 years.
I understand, but now the prosecutor, the district attorney, has to decide if they're going to take him back to trial or not.
Right.
And in the meantime, we're going to try to get him bail. Okay, so maybe he has a better shot of fighting his case on the outside.
Right.
And be home after all those years.
So how did it end up?
Well, the Judge Danny Chun, he denied us bail, okay? And, which we feel...
Even after reversal?
Even after the reversal, and his reasoning was that, that the jury verdict was unanimous in their decision. Therefore, he is not...
No, it would have to be unanimous for a conviction.
Which made no sense to me, because that is voided. It was reversed.
Right.
So how can you base your decision on not giving John bail after spending 14 years in prison based on a jury being unanimous in this decision back in 2005? That is now null and voided. But that was his reason, and it's documented.
He stayed in.
Yeah.
Now, eventually, a year later or thereabouts, the Court of Appeals, which is the highest court in the state of New York, reinstated it.
Yeah, but there was stuff going on in between that.
Was there a second trial?
No, there wasn't.
So they just reinstated it. They didn't say, send it back and let's see. They reinstated it. They said the Court of Appeals, the appellate division made a mistake. That's what they said.
Well, they didn't really say that. They didn't say they made a mistake. Okay.
What did they say?
I'm going to tell you how I understand it. I'm a lay person.
Sure.
So they said, yes, indeed, John, there was misconduct during the trial. Anna Siga-Nicolazzi, the prosecutor, she hid the fact that she gave a jailhouse liar, a jailhouse informant, a benefit for his testimony.
Right. And that would be under Brady material.
That's right.
And then very quickly, Brady material is any information, it doesn't have to be a document, it could be information that the prosecutor has in their possession. They have to turn that over to the defense attorney. Right? It doesn't matter what they believe to be the strategy of the defense attorney. That would be anything that could be exculpatory, meaning maybe the defendant didn't do it. It could be used to impeach a witness for cross-examination. It could be to lessen a sentence. So it doesn't have to be anything rock solid where it means he's automatically not guilty. Often, and I've talked to many exonerees, Marty Tankliff, Jeff Deskovic, I talked to Frank Vetro, Brady violations happen way too often. So here we're going to talk about what a Brady violation is, and what you just said is something that should have been turned over
That's right.
to John's defense attorney
Correct.
that they could have used in some way to win the case, or at least to lessen the blow, or to question a witness. Maybe he wants to call that witness to the stand. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, this, at the time, it was a gentleman named John Vito. Vito testified in 2005 that John confessed to him, okay? So the jury is listening to this.
And they think there's a confession, even though it wasn't taken by the police.
Right, correct. And Anna-Sigga Nicolazzi, she vouched for his truthfulness. She vouched and she told the jury that the defense would like you to believe that he's doing this for some sort of benefit, but there's no documents to that. When in fact, what was uncovered was he did get a benefit for his false testimony.
A lesser sentence, I would...
Correct. He was facing 3.5 to 7 years himself for his own crimes, okay? So he comes forward and he says John confessed.
Sure, he wants to get a lesser sentence. He'll say whatever you want him to say, often.
Correct.
That's the problem with these jailhouse informants or jailhouse witnesses. So had the defense attorney known he got a benefit...
He would have told the jury, and the jury could have weighed that evidence. Well, maybe this guy is saying these things because he's getting a benefit.
Let me ask this question, though. As a defense attorney, I'm a former prosecutor. If I see a witness, let's say a jailhouse witness testifying. Now, let's say I wasn't given any Brady.
That's right.
One of the questions I will ask that witness is, did you receive anything of value? It doesn't have to be money. It could be a lesser sentence. It could be some benefit. Was that witness asked that question by the defense attorney?
Yes.
And what was the answer?
He lied.
Okay, that's even worse.
Yes.
Because if the attorney didn't ask, you could say, well, he didn't lie. He wasn't asked that question. He lied about that.
So 14 years later, well, first of all, you have to consider the guy was on drugs. He was a career criminal. 14, maybe 13, 14 years later, he cleans up his act. He comes forward. We had a hearing, an evidentiary hearing. And this guy gets up on the stand and he apologizes to John.
Was that a 440?
He's crying.
Was it
Yes,
triggered by a 440 motion? It's a motion you make.
Yes.
You get to set aside a verdict.
Right.
Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Even polygraph information, some things that are used there are not admissible at a trial.
Oh,
but
really?
Yes. A 440 can use, in fact, in Tankliff's case, a polygraph was used. You can't do that. The only state is New Mexico where you can use it at a trial. So New York, you can't. You can use it in a 440. So the 440 got you back into court.
That's right.
Had the hearing. He apologizes and says, I lied.
Right. I lied, and this is why I lied.
And the Court of the Appellate Division ultimately got that case.
This ultimately got that case, but this is at the 440 hearing
Before
in
the
front
trial
of J.D.
judge.
Chun,
Right.
and he denied John a reversal. He said that the jailhouse informant was laughable, and he credited the prosecutor for her testimony. She, of course, denied that he got any benefit.
Right. You're saying that the prosecutor testified at
Yes, we subpoenaed her.
Okay.
Okay, so
Which wouldn't happen, obviously, at a trial phase.
Right.
But in a 440, things can come out.
Correct.
Okay, so she testified. Now, I just want to quickly touch on something, because in this show I like to educate as well.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the prosecutor vouched for that witness. By
During
law,
trial.
Right. By law, when any attorney puts someone on the stand,
I know.
you have to vouch for their credibility. That's why you can't impeach their testimony unless you get them declared a hostile witness. So when you put somebody on the stand, you're saying, I believe them. If you don't believe them, you're not supposed to put them on the stand. So then now, years later, there's a hearing, the prosecutor testifies, the witness, the jailhouse witness testifies, I'm sorry, I lied. The judge is not buying it.
No, he said his testimony was laughable. If you see the
But it wasn't laughable when he lied years earlier.
Yeah, exactly, right. When it was so ludicrous. I mean, this gets really into the weeds. I would like to tell you, in addition, John Oviedo was at a visit at Rikers Island with his family, John Oviedo, and my son John had a visit with his father, his aunt, and stepsister. And his father had taken a stroke, actually 2 strokes, back in 2002, 2003, and it rendered him speechless. He couldn't speak.
Right.
So John Oviedo had testified at trial, and he said he overheard John's father say,
I see.
What did you do with the gun? And my son supposedly said, don't worry about
And
it.
it's a total fabrication.
Yes, because then this unraveled during trial. And I was so excited. I said, this is the smoking gun.
Right.
Because John's father can't speak. So we got a 5-minute break, and I told John's attorney, Sam Gregory, he can't even speak. It's impossible for this man to have heard this when he had 2 strokes. So I went into a panic mode, and I had some family members run over to the hospital, get his records.
Well, you could have put him on the stand as well, and then he could write.
Hold on.
I'm just trying to think of it
No,
as a trial attorney.
I love it. We're in the hallway debating this, and
Right.
the trial attorney is pacing back and forth, and he says, let me think. I said, he can't speak. Put him on the stand.
I would've.
Put him on the stand.
I don't want to play Monday morning quarterback, but that's what I'm thinking I would do.
Yeah. So then he turns around and says to me, let me ask you a question. Was John's father, John Sr., ever in trouble before with the law? And I go, yeah, back in 1989, he got in trouble with some drugs or something. I couldn't remember what the charge was. He goes, I can't put him on the stand because the jury is going to say, like father, like son. Well, this is what he said. I got to cut you off.
My response would be, so the issue is, could he speak or not?
Thank you. So then my husband at the time said, all right, you can't put John on the stand? John Sr., put his doctor on the stand. So our 5 minutes was up. We had to get back in the courthouse. I send John's aunt and his stepsister to Methodist Hospital to get the records. Now, we need those records now.
Couldn't you guys ask for a continuance and subpoena the records and get them in a couple of days?
Thank you. So this gets really bad. So they needed a HIPAA release.
Sure.
So they come back and they get John himself and they go back, and all those records were like $600. They bought them. We're in court the next day. They have the records that are stamped 2002. He took a stroke, another stroke. And we give them all to Sam. And now I'm happy.
And
We're
that's a
going to
business
discredit.
record exception to the hearsay rule, so that could come in.
Okay. Then within an hour or two, this is emotional for me because, I mean, he could have discredited John Avito right there.
Mm-hmm. But what was the ruling? Why, the judge didn't allow that information?
No. Sam said, I rest my case.
Sam is the defense attorney.
He didn't use anything.
Okay. Again, I wasn't there. I don't like to
He
play
said,
Monday
"I
morning
rest my
quarterback,
case.
but
I rest my
that's
case."
something I think that's very important for the jury.
I didn't get out of bed for 3
Right.
days because he didn't use the doctor.
Because at a trial, the defense attorney doesn't have to prove A, B, C, D, E. The prosecutor does. The defense attorney has to create reasonable doubt.
Right.
Because the prosecutor has to convict beyond a reasonable doubt. If you can create that doubt, you don't have to solve the crime. This is not Perry Mason. The defense attorney just has to say, you know, if you're going to go back there in the jury room and think about, now we have a confession. Don't think about it that way, because the father cannot speak. He could not have said it.
That's right.
And that was a lie. That's a fabrication. And that's what the prosecutor wants you to believe. There's reasonable doubt.
Right.
That's something that could have been created. I don't know why that wasn't brought out. Maybe there's more to it. But I think that's something that had to be put before the jury.
Absolutely.
And there was no way
They
to
had a
do
right
that
to know.
except,
Right.
I think I might have put your husband on the stand. Ask him a
Ex-husband.
question he can't answer and say, Your Honor,
That's right.
can he be given a board? Like we have whiteboards here.
Right.
Here, write down, I can't speak. And then you get the records in. And if you ask for continuance and say, I want to get the doctor in, lay it on thick.
Right.
Leave no doubt
Right.
as to.
I agree.
All right.
I agree 100%. I was
But
devastated.
But that didn't happen.
No.
So the judge didn't let him out. And then down the road, the Court of Appeals reinstates the conviction.
Yeah, that's another whole long story. We're preparing for trial now because now let's move the audience up to 2018. We've gotten the reversal based
Court
on...
of Appeals hasn't spoken yet. So now
Right.
you think you're getting another trial.
But why did we get a reversal? That's what we got to talk
But
about.
you're thinking now, good, we got another trial.
Correct. It was based on prosecutorial misconduct.
Right.
It was a proven fact that she hid evidence that the jury and the judge and the defense deserved to have, which was he had received a benefit for his
Right.
testimony. So we got a reversal based on that. So then the DA, Eric Gonzalez, appeals the Second Department's decision, and it's now pending in the Court of Appeals.
Highest court.
And in the meantime, Mark Betterow, John's attorney, who is a fantastic
Who wasn't the attorney in the trial?
No,
Got
no.
it.
He's an appeals attorney. He is asking the DA's office for all the evidence so we can go through it because we're preparing for a new trial. Right. And when he receives these boxes and boxes of documents, he goes through them right away and he finds a tape recording of a second jailhouse informant that we didn't know about, that he came forward and he spoke to the prosecutor and a detective, and he said that John's co-defendant confessed to him. And he said he did it alone, John had nothing to do with it. Phil, we knew nothing about this.
That's Brady on steroids.
We
that could
knew
blow this whole
nothing.
case wide open.
Nothing about this. And
that should have been turned over. That is
Judge Chun knew
misconduct.
nothing about this. Judge Chun, the one who's overseeing the 440 hearings.
So another 440 was made at that time?
Well, better all ask the Court of Appeal, can he pull back this one that they're deciding and amend it and add this hitting tape recording? They say no, okay? So he says...
So much for a search for the truth.
Yeah, right, her truth seekers. But they were going to weigh the evidence that was documented before them, and he said, well, we're just going to come back up with another 440 because we found additional. And, the Court of Appeals, the Second Department, Danny Chun, nobody knew about this tape. So now...
But now it's there. Now it's out there.
Now we're back in court again. We put it before Danny Chun, and Danny Chun ordered a evidentiary hearing, which will be December 1st.
Oh, okay. So
yes.
That's going to happen...
It's real soon.
Okay.
And, of course, we're going to subpoena Nicolazzi and her co-counsel.
Right.
Because
Now, who's going to try the case?
When you say try the case...
Well, you said there's going to be a hearing. So who's going
Mark
to handle...
Betteroff.
Okay, so he's the appellate attorney, but he's going to do the hearing. Fine.
Correct.
Okay. Because some attorneys just do appeals, some attorneys just do the trial. He's going to be the
Well,
litigator.
you're calling it a trial, so it's a 440 hearing.
It's a hearing. Right.
Okay. You know, it's sort of like a trial, but this
Same
time we're
principle. There's no jury.
Right.
But the judge will hear the evidence. Now, what you're telling me, it sounds promising. It sounds very, very promising because it sounded like you should have had it last time.
Yes.
But now you have the co-defendant is saying, I did it and I acted alone.
Right.
That's got to, and it's nothing
important.
new. It's not, see, judges are always a little cautious when people come out now and say something. This tape existed way back when.
In 2005.
Right, because now people sometimes can have a change of heart years later, but this existed at the time. Very, very telling.
And this man who came forward back in 2005, his name is Joseph Ingram. He had since passed away. So we don't even get a chance to ask him any questions. He's gone.
Now let me ask you.
But maybe we should talk about why they reinstated. People are going to wonder, why did they reinstate it, the Court of Appeals?
Right.
Well, their decision, I don't know if you got a chance to read it, their decision says she definitely committed serious misconduct. However, it was harmless error.
Right. And
harmless error.
And I hear that often in these cases where it's like, look, there's a big screw up, but you know what? It's no big deal. It often is a big deal.
Yes. The man's in prison for 25 years to life.
Now, let me ask you a question. Why are you also known as Mother Justice and the other term is undercover mother? Why? How did you get those names? How did you earn those names?
They dubbed me, the press dubbed me.
But what did you do to earn that? You had to do something. They wouldn't just came out of nowhere and called you that.
Right.
I know the answer, but I want you to tell my audience.
All right. Well, you know, when they came back with the verdict, I was devastated, and I knew the verdict was wrong. I couldn't understand what went wrong. Why didn't they come back with not guilty? There was no evidence. It was a he said, she said. And I said the problem had to lie. Of course, the problem was the prosecutor feeding them lies, but it had to lie in the jury box. And Phil, I hired 4, maybe 5 private investigators before I decided to investigate myself. And what was happening was I was just throwing my money away. Every time I would hire a private investigator, they were getting nowhere. They would knock on the...
All 4 of them struck out.
All 4 of them struck out. And I just felt like, you know, they were knocking on their doors to ask them questions with a suit on. They were very unapproachable.
Right. And people will be like, wait a minute, I don't think I'm going to say anything.
We're in Brooklyn. Nobody wanted to even open the door. like asking questions.
Because they feel that they're a rat if they say something.
Maybe, but whatever it was, I wasn't getting anywhere, and I was just throwing my money down the drain.
So you decided to do what?
Well, I figured that I was the one that had to ask the questions and ask, what went wrong? Why did you come up with a guilty verdict? So I approached my husband. I said, this is what I want to do. I want to talk to them. He thought it was a stupid idea. You're an idiot. What are you, crazy? I was like, no. He said, they put your son away for 25 years. They're not going to talk to you. I said, well, what if I change my appearance? What if I transform myself?
Because they saw you every day at that trial.
Exactly, for 2 weeks. So no way they're going to come near me, right? So to make a long story short, I happened to target this one particular juror member, juror number 8, because I found out he was a neighborhood guy. And right there, there was alarm bells. So I said, okay, so I need to get close to him to start asking the questions, what happened inside. And, a person had said to me, that is jury tampering. And I had to clear that up and say, no, it's not jury tampering because it's post-verdict. Anybody really could talk to them.
Just like after a verdict, I'm allowed to speak to the jury.
Right, exactly.
And I try to do it all the time.
Right.
For better or for worse. You want to know. So you didn't do it while the trial was going on. That would be clearly jury tampering.
Of course. I wouldn't even attempt it. I really thought that it was going to be a not guilty verdict. I was like, there is nothing here, nothing pointed to John. Everything was pointing away from John. So what happened? So I decided to transform myself. I have dirty blonde hair. I dyed it really blonde. I lost like 15 pounds. You
used some clothing.
Very sexy clothing. Right. Yeah.
I'm glad you said it, not me.
Yeah. Well, I needed to attract this younger man. Yeah,
right.
I was 47 at the time, and he was 37. So I figured, let me try to get close to him and be a damsel in distress.
Did you discuss this with your husband or anyone else?
I did.
He said it was okay?
No, he did not say it was okay. No, it wasn't happening.
Okay.
But he knew I was going to do it anyway.
Right. Did you tell anybody else?
No.
Just your husband?
Yeah.
He knew. Right.
Yeah, and he knew very little. He just watched me changing my appearance and blonde hair, long eyelashes, long nails,
So you put your plan in motion?
I did. And then I rented an apartment. That was just 1 block from juror number 8.
So you found out somehow where he lived?
I found out, which isn't rocket science. It's very easy. Just go. That's another whole story. So
another day.
Yeah, for another day. Right. So I found out where he lived. I started riding my bike past him and his friend. Every day I watched his routine. And I would watch him come off the train and just hang out on the corner in Bensonhurst. And he sold pot. I figured that out after watching. The cars would pull up. He would give them something and in return. And I would watch from a distance. But so it was like a beautiful October day. I passed by on my bike with shorts on, and his friend Richie whistled at me. But I was already like months into it, and I had to either...
It's like Donnie Brasco, where he hangs out at the bar, and it sounds like a movie.
It's crazy. I was desperate for the truth. John needed a fair trial. He needed a fair trial. Something was wrong, and I was determined to find out what it was.
So on that day, you made contact?
I did. I made contact. I just spun my bike around. I started talking to Richie. Found out later on Richie was the married man, and Jason Allo, juror number 8, was the single guy and not interested in me at all. He was just interested in selling me pot.
Juror number 8.
Now, I haven't smoked pot since my 20s. And I'm like, oh, God, what am I doing here? So he said, if you ever need any ganja, here's my number.
Right.
So I was like, okay. So then I rode my bike back home, shaking like a leaf, and telling my husband, oh, man, he wanted to know if I ever needed any ganja. But I was so frazzled, I couldn't remember what it was. So he had a bit of a laugh on that. And then I waited a week, and I did call him up. And then eventually we started hanging out, and I was cooking meals for him and serving him wine. And eventually, he just was very eager to talk about the case.
And your video and audio? It was
Not
an audio?
video, it was all audio.
Audio.
All audio. And this went on for several months.
Was it a tape recorder or did you have yourself wired?
I had myself wired, okay? So as we went on, he told me like the highlight of his life was being on this trial.
And you said he was like about 37?
37 years old.
He was, okay.
Yeah, and he lived with his mom in Bensonhurst, and he did tell me a lot of personal things, you know, about how he used to deal coke, and then he got away from that, and then he was making ends meet by selling pot. And, you know, because you have to understand, this went on for months, so there was a lot of audio. And I knew that he was very prejudiced. I've known that because there was one particular time when I was driving through Borough Park. At least that's what I told him.
So he was an anti-Semite, fair to say?
Oh, yeah. Really seriously, like, this, it was bad. So really, I was sitting on my couch in my home in Prospect Park South, and I called him, and I said that I was lost. And I was in this area. It was like 11th or 12th Avenue and 40th. Oh, he said, you're a Jew town. So all these little hints over the months, I knew he had an issue. But it wasn't just the Jewish people. It was every nationality you could imagine. He hated everybody. So then he tells me, when we're together, that he hated Jews.
Now, John's not Jewish, right?
He's not Jewish.
But he thought he was.
Yeah, because of his last name, Giuca.
Okay.
So now he's telling me that he could have gotten off of the jury.
Right.
And the reason why he could have gotten off is because he hates Jews. And I said, that is perfect for you, because he really does hate Jews. And John Giuca, he's Jewish.
So you were going along with it?
Of course. I never went up against him. I always laughed at his stupid jokes, and I always fed him some food and wine, and I just made him think that I looked up to him. So, yeah, his jokes were terrible, but I laughed. So he said, and I hate Jews, and John Giuca is a Jew. And I said, how do you know he was a Jew? He goes, his last name. And I got that on the recording. And it got transcribed.
I wouldn't think that's a Jewish name.
You know, regardless, he hated Jews. He thought John was Jewish. I mean, and you put away John because you hate Jewish people?
I had a quick question. The attorney in me has to ask this question. One of the first things you said today was that the day he got arrested, he was shopping for Christmas presents and Hanukkah presents. I'm just curious, the connection.
The connection is we live in Brooklyn, and we have Muslim friends and Jewish friends.
So he's buying
and
for other
Christians.
people. Got it.
Of
okay.
course.
Okay. Because sometimes people are like half Jewish or but he's not Jewish at all.
He's not Jewish.
This
but, yeah.
juror
But
thought
we
he was
have
Jewish.
because of his last name.
Now, how did that come into play? Because you might be anti-Semitic or racist, and you might not let it cloud your judgment as a juror. Did you feel that it did in this particular case?
100% did, because he said to me, but there was no evidence at another time.
But he's only one of 12.
Good point, okay? But he told me, okay, and this is what the lawyer, the appeals lawyer, was hanging on to. There was another woman that was on the jury, and she said, but there's no evidence. And he said, I know because I know. He said that he knew John's friends. He hung out with John's friends. He never knew John. He never met John. He never met Russo.
He's tainting the jury pool. Not the jury. He's tainting the jury.
Wink. He's tainted the jury. It was tainted because he hung out with John's friends. He smoked pot with John's friends. And then he goes on to tell me a big story about how his friends were in a gang, and that...
and the other 11 are hearing this.
Oh, my God, it was awful.
That's amazing.
That he hung out in this house where it had holes in the walls and they were growing marijuana. But this isn't my son doing this. My son lived in Prospect Park South. These are mutual friends of Jason Allos and John's.
Totally irrelevant.
Thank you. So, yes, I mean, I said this before and I'll say it again. You know, we wanted a fair trial. This jury was tainted. It was spoiled. It was like that old saying, if you have a bowl of stew and you find a rancid piece of meat in it,
Get rid
do
of it.
you just pluck that rancid piece of meat out
No.
and continue eating the stew, or do you throw the stew out and get a whole new bowl? I wanted a whole new bowl. I wanted a fair trial for John. So we went to court based on jury misconduct.
Okay, so you gather the information.
Yes.
You make your recordings. You give this to the appellate attorney at some
Correct.
point. Did he know, if you can answer this question, if you can't, I understand. Did he know what you were doing?
No.
He found out when you said, I got something for you, and you
I
presented
still
it to him.
remember that day. That's Lloyd Epstein. Lloyd Epstein, he's a good guy. I walked into his office and I gave him
He's an
all
attorney
the
with that
tapes.
firm?
We were doing an appeal based on ineffective assistance of counsel, okay? And while he was still writing the motion, I went into his office and I told him that, I went undercover and these are the tapes. And the guy said that, he hated John for being a Jew and he hung out with John's friends. And he said it was in the stars that he gets picked to be on this particular jury case. And Lloyd Epstein said, wait, I need to sit down. So he had
I would
to
have said
speak.
the same thing.
Yeah, he said, can you repeat that? And he said, he looked it up. He had to go through all these tapes and then have them transcribed.
Sure.
He said, I don't think this has ever been done
I've
in
never
history.
heard of it, other than when I heard of you
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah, he said,
And I've been doing this 30 years.
wow.
I've seen where people get information from other witnesses, but never a juror. I've never heard of that, except maybe in a movie, but never in real life. So what you did is amazing.
It's amazing,
How you
but it didn't
cultivated
get us
it. It wasn't like one
justice.
shot, one conversation. You cultivated this.
Yeah.
Almost like I said, I was kind of joking, but not really. Like Donnie Brasco, hey, how he had a, you just couldn't walk in and say, okay, I want to be a mafioso today. You couldn't go in there and say, I'm John's mother, tell me something. You would have got nothing.
Correct.
What you did took patience,
Yes.
took an old coach used to say stick-to-itiveness. You
Yeah,
had to
stick-to-itiveness.
you had to stick with it.
Right.
It might come up nothing, but what you
Right.
did was amazing. I got to commend you on that.
Right, right.
So you give it to this attorney. He has to sit down. I would have had to sit down too.
Yeah.
He digests what you did. What does he tell you?
Well, we put it before Judge Alan Maris.
In a 440.
Correct, a 440
A
motion.
new one, or just to amend the prior one that was existing? What did you
Well, he never did put the first one in.
do? So this is all part of the 440.
Yeah, it's ineffective assistance
Of
of
counsel,
counsel with serious juror misconduct.
Right. Another element now, very important element.
Yes, yes. And keep in mind also, this is costing me a fortune, because you
imagine.
have to transcribe everything. You had to.
Not to mention you had to rent an apartment to pull this off.
Exactly, and the equipment.
Wow.
Don't forget, I had to join a gym. Those are not cheap.
If I need a private investigator, I think I'm going to call you. Amazing.
You said patience,
Yes.
and being a mom, and all moms can relate to this. You have to be patient.
And you were.
Yeah, and love. Love is what's driving you.
And I could just imagine, if you had to hire somebody to do what you did, I could just imagine what that bill would have been. Astronomical.
Phil, I tried that, and I'm telling you, I knew if I wanted it done right, I have to do it myself.
And you did. So that goes in a 440. It gets submitted to the same judge.
The trial judge, Judge Alan Maris. Keep in mind, Judge Alan Maris's son, Justin Maris, works in the DA's office. So
Wait, no, so it's not the original trial judge then?
it is the original trial
They said it was
judge.
Chen, or?
Chun is now, because Judge Alan Maris retired.
Okay.
And when a trial judge retires, then the chief judge, which is Matthew Demick,
Appoint somebody.
assigns a judge to the 440. But that's what's going on now. So we're talking about 2008
Got it.
was the jury issue. So Judge Alan Maris was still on the bench, and of course, I'm begging the courts to be truth seekers. And what I've come to learn is they're very good at burying the truth.
Now, couldn't there be a conflict of interest because his son, you said, was an assistant district attorney at that time?
At that time.
Okay.
See, now I know now, I didn't know it back then that, that he worked there. And
the assigning judge had to know.
Yes, of course.
You know whose
well,
son works where, I would think.
Exactly. So how I look at it is Judge Alan Maris isn't going to want to, vote or make a decision against his son's boss, right? His son.
That's the potential conflict or the
Correct.
appearance of impropriety.
He should have removed himself.
Right. He shouldn't have been assigned in the first place, but...
You want to know the end result of the serious jury misconduct? Judge Alan Maris holds, instead of evidentiary hearing, he holds a press conference. And he says...
Wait. Who held a press conference?
Judge Alan Maris.
The judge held a press conference?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
I've never heard a judge hold a press conference, not while he's sitting
Google
as a judge.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he states that during the hearing, the press is all there, and he says, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning, and he says that he's going to call upon the legislators to create a law against people like Doreen Giuliano.
Wow.
Call upon the legislators.
I was going to ask you about that. Did you come under the microscope?
I did. He took the focus off the real issue, and the real issue is John didn't get a fair trial, and he had everybody debating whether what I did was right or wrong. And I had to hire a lawyer for myself at the time because now the judge is focusing on me. Right. And I did nothing wrong. I didn't break any laws.
For him to say that the legislature
he's going to call upon them
pass a law, that would be an ex post facto charge. You know, maybe in the future someone who does what you did, but you were home free.
And, my lawyer made that very clear to Alan Maris. He said, Your Honor, with all due respect, we actually have a law, and it's called perjury and contempt of court, and the jury committed it.
And put the focus back on that.
Right. But we didn't even get a hearing, and I understand why. If we would have gotten an evidentiary hearing, we would have subpoenaed the juror, Jason Allo. He would have had to tell the truth. We would have subpoenaed the friends that he hung out with.
So he never had to take the stand?
He never had to. They protected the criminal. They protected the criminal instead of just giving John an evidentiary hearing, get to the bottom of what went on. This juror snuck on that jury to convict John.
Right, and he tainted the jury in the process.
Absolutely.
Question, you said now there's another 440 hearing going to take place December of 2020, this year.
Yes, December 1st.
Is that issue part of the 440, juror misconduct?
No, it's additional 440 motion. It is a prosecutorial misconduct, and it's based on Joseph Ingram, who came forward and said that John's co-counsel in Rikers Island confessed to the murder. And he said that John had nothing to do with it. It was his gun only, and John had nothing to do with it. That tape was hidden from us for 15 years.
Is the co-defendant who made that confession set to testify?
The detectives went up to see him. They said he was a lunatic. He said again to them, we got a report, but it's very flimsy, so we will subpoena them. He's not well. He's in a mental prison. He's in a mental facility. I mean, if you really think about it, you have to be ill to do what he did. This kid, Mark Fisher, was shot 5 times. Mm-hmm. Who does that? People who are not well, in my opinion, right? So, so he's not well. But he did confess again to the detectives.
And you're not relying on what he's saying now, you're relying on what he said way back. Right. Both, but I'm saying you do have the information. It's not like it never came out, now it's coming out from a person who's in a mental facility. Right. He said it years earlier. It was recorded.
That's right.
And
it was hidden. Keep in mind, we did not have this. Anna Siga-Nicolazzi did not turn it over to the trial attorney, the judge, the jury. None of them heard it. We do believe if the jury would have heard that, I mean, there's a possibility that they would have come back with not guilty.
Sometimes it doesn't, and I've tried many cases, sometimes it doesn't take a lot for a jury to find reasonable doubt.
Right.
And that's all you don't have to find reasonable doubt in every issue presented. You could just say, I have reasonable doubt that this murder was committed. They got the right guy, the co-defendant, he's away, and John should come home.
Right.
And that's what you're hoping for in
Yeah.
that December hearing. You hope there's no further delays.
Right.
And with COVID, there's been delays for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
And you hope that doesn't, because there's no jury here, so you don't have to worry about that aspect at this point. So the judge should be able to hold that hearing. Everyone will have their mask on, and you'll be able to give whoever's going to testify will testify.
Yeah.
But you said it was a second separate 440 motion with respect to the juror misconduct.
That was the first one, and now and then there was a second one, and now this is the third one.
Right, but in December, the hearing, won't juror misconduct come up?
No, we lost that. He didn't even hold a hearing. And then we appealed that.
But if it wasn't
that is
fully
a dead
litigated,
issue. It's a dead issue because we lost. It wasn't litigated. No, it was buried.
So that might be an appealable, it is an appealable issue down the road. You hope it doesn't have to go to that now. You hope the 440 motion carries the day. But if not, you have to have, an issue has to be litigated for it to be decided.
We took the juror issue all the ways up to the federal department and lost. But it gets a little crazy.
And we got about 2 minutes left. So.
Yeah, I could talk about corruption and the prosecutor.
We may have to bring you back on again for another
There's
part
so
of the
much
show.
more.
I know. We've covered a lot today, I got to say.
There is the chief judge, Matthew Demick, the chief judge who assigned Danny Chun to John's case, okay, because the trial judge was no longer available. He retired. So we ended up with Danny Chun. But I found out that the chief judge, Matthew Demick's daughter, Kate Demick, dated Mark Fisher, the victim in my son's case.
Can this get any more bizarre?
You know, I told that to several people, and they said that this judge has to recuse himself. And maybe you can educate me. I understand Danny Chun recusing himself, but how do you get the chief judge whose job it is to assign judges to 440 hearings, or how do you get the chief judge recused?
See, that's an interesting one, because that chief judge wouldn't be making he's assigning somebody, but he's not making the ultimate decision. Unless, like, sometimes you have a special prosecutor, because let's say someone in the DA's office, there's a conflict of interest, you could get a special prosecutor. So let's say a Nassau prosecutor comes here, but maybe a judge in another jurisdiction has to make that assignment. And maybe have a judge. It gets
Listen, all right?
Bizarre.
Matthew assigned Chun because Chun is pro-prosecution. No matter what we put before him, he sides with the prosecutors. I mean, come on, we asked for bail. He's been in jail for 15 years. Give him bail. And what kind of answer is that? No bail because in 2005 it was a unanimous decision.
And that was even before the Court of Appeals came out. So he was. Now, we pretty much ran out of time. Like I said, I could always have you on again. We could talk.
Yes.
There's
a lot more corruption.
What I'd like to do.
There is goblins in every closet when it concerns Brooklyn DA's office.
I'd like to bring you on after that hearing, so you can tell us how that hearing went. So we're out of time. I really want to thank you, Doreen, for coming on. Doreen Quinn Giuliano, John Giuca's mother. I wish her well. I hope everything turns out.
Fair trial.
This is even more bizarre than some of the other cases that I've covered,
and it gets even worse.
And it gets even worse. We're going to cover that. Again, this is Finding Common Ground. I'm attorney Phil Jusino. You can see this show every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Altice Channel 115. Also, check out my radio shows, Phil Jusino Drive at 5, which is 103.9 FM, LI News Radio. You have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.